The Galactic Council prided itself on 3,000 cycles of peace. 3,000. Can you imagine? My species can barely go 3 days without an argument over proper tentacle grooming techniques. But there we were, 57 species united in harmonious cooperation, spreading across the stars like a benevolent plague of goodwill and shared resources. The path to enlightenment is paved with compromise, Council Overseer Prell would drone on during every assembly. I swear, if I had to hear that phrase one more time, I might have compromised his face with my fist. But that's not the Council way. No. Violence was something we'd evolved beyond. Something primitive species did before they became civilized. Oh, how wrong we were. My name is Krell Zach, Senior Diplomatic Attached to the Council's First Contact Division. I'm the one who met them first. The humans. So really, this whole galactic mess is partially my fault. You're welcome. When our scouts discovered Earth, we were thrilled. A new species to welcome into our peaceful collective. The initial observations showed promise. They built magnificent structures, composed moving artistic works, and seemed to care deeply for their young. All excellent signs of a species ready for elevation to council status. I'll never forget the day we landed in their United Nations courtyard. Such a quaint name. As if uniting nations was somehow impressive when we had united entire solar systems. The human representative, Ambassador Lena Thornton, approached our delegation with open arms and a disarming smile. Quite literally disarming, as our security detail actually powered down their defensive shields. Something about her manner just seemed so trustworthy. "We come in peace," she said, which we later learned was some kind of cultural joke among humans. They found it hilarious. We didn't get it until much later. "Your species shows great promise," I replied, following protocol. The Galactic Council welcomes the opportunity for cultural exchange and eventual membership. What happened next should have been our first warning. Ambassador Thornton's smile widened, and she said, "Membership? Well, that's certainly an interesting proposition. How soon can we join? No questions about requirements? No negotiation of terms? Just immediate acceptance?" Every other species we'd encountered had deliberated for at least a decade before committing to council law. But these humans, eager as hatchlings at feeding time. "There is a standard observation period of approximately 5 Earth years," I explained, somewhat taken aback. "Can we speed that up?" she asked, pulling out what they called a tablet device. "Our president is very excited about interstellar cooperation, and we'd like to fast-track things if possible." I should have been suspicious, but their eagerness seemed so innocent. Little did I know they were simply experts at appearing harmless. Over the next few months, our cultural exchange programs revealed some puzzling human behaviors. They engaged in recreational activities called sports that involved ritualized conflict. They consumed fiction about war and destruction for entertainment. And most disturbingly, they maintained military forces despite having no external threats. When I questioned Ambassador Thornton about these curiosities, she laughed, a sound I've come to associate with impending disaster. "Oh, that's just our history," she explained casually. "Every species has a violent past, right? We're evolving beyond it, just like you did." The council ate it up. "See?" said Overseer Prell during our assessment meeting. "They acknowledge their primitive evolutionary phase and aspire to our enlightened state. This is precisely why the Council exists, to guide developing species toward peace." Their military? A relic they maintain out of tradition, our analysts concluded. Their obsession with conflict and entertainment? A way to channel aggressive instincts harmlessly, our psychologists theorized. Their sports? Physical competition promoting health and teamwork, our cultural experts declared. The Council voted unanimously to fast-track Earth's membership. Unprecedented. But humans were so charming, so adaptable, so convincing. 3 Earth years after first contact, humanity joined the Galactic Council with a ceremony watched by billions across thousands of worlds. Ambassador Thornton signed the Treaty of Eternal Peace with such enthusiasm that she broke 2 ceremonial pens. We have so much to learn from you all, she gushed during her acceptance speech. And hopefully a few things to contribute as well. Those few things became apparent just weeks later when the newly appointed human delegation submitted their first formal proposal to the council. I still have a copy of the document. I keep it as a reminder of my failure. Request ID, HD 7729B. Petitioning species human. Subject, research permission for advanced energy weapons systems. Justification, for scientific purposes and defensive contingencies. When I confronted Ambassador Thornton about this alarming request, she seemed genuinely confused by my concern. It's just research, Krelzak, she said, patting my shoulder with uncomfortable familiarity. You can't expect us to stop being curious just because we joined your club, right? Besides, shouldn't all members contribute to the collective knowledge? I should have sounded the alarm then. I should have recognized what was happening. Instead, I simply asked, but weapons research? The council hasn't needed weapons in over 1,000 cycles. She smiled that disarming smile again and said words that now haunt my nightmares. Well, let's hope we never need them. But isn't it better to have something and not need it than need it and not have it? Just common sense, really. Common sense. That's what they called it. That's how it began. Not with a declaration of war or a show of force, but with a simple request for research permissions for scientific purposes. The council approved it unanimously. 5 years. That's how long it took for the humans to integrate themselves so early into our systems that extracting them would have been like trying to remove a parasite that's wrapped itself around your central nervous system. Not that we were trying to remove them. No. We were still congratulating ourselves on our successful cultural integration project. Ambassador Thornton had returned to Earth, replaced by a human male called Marcus Drake. Where Thornton had been all smiles and gentle persuasion, Drake was, well, let's just say subtlety wasn't in his diplomatic toolkit. These trade terms are unacceptable, Drake announced during his first council session, slapping his hand on the ancient table of accord. Several Mushin representatives flinched at the sound. They're sensitive to percussion, poor things. Humanity requires access to the tritium deposits in the Cygnus sector. We're prepared to offer mining technology in exchange. But the Cygnus sector is a protected ecological reserve, protested Representative Beale of the Uraji Collective. The council established that designation 300 cycles ago. Drake smiled. Not the warm, disarming smile of Thornton. No, this was something predatory. In times change, he said simply. Our technology minimizes ecological impact. Besides, the council needs the resources our mining can provide. The vote passed 32 to 25. The first divided council vote in, well, longer than I'd been alive. And that's saying something, because my species lives approximately 400 of your Earth years. That same week, I received a private communication from Lorana Pell, a council scientist assigned to the Human Research Collaboration Initiative. Krelzak, we need to talk, she whispered, her normally iridescent skin dull with stress. The humans. Their weapons research. It's concerning. We met in a quiet corner of the Grand Arboretum, away from the council's monitoring systems. Yes, we had those. Peace requires a certain amount of vigilance. They're not just researching theoretical applications, Lorana said, her tendrils twitching nervously. They're actively enhancing weapons designs. Plasma containment systems that could power city grids? They're miniaturizing them for what they call tactical deployment. And those medical nanites we shared? They've modified them for something called armor penetration. I laughed. Actually laughed. Can you believe it? Lorana, you're overreacting. Humans have different cultural frames of reference. It's just terminology. Is it? She challenged, showing me schematics on her datapad. Look at these power signatures. This isn't research. This is production. I waved her concerns away. The council approved their research. They're naturally curious. And besides, what would they do with weapons? We're at peace. Oh, the irony of those words haunts me still. Meanwhile, humans were establishing colonies at an alarming rate. Not just on the lush, habitable worlds that most species preferred. No, they were claiming harsh, brutal planets that the Council had classified as inhospitable centuries ago. Why would anyone want to live on Tarsus IV? Council Overseer Prell wondered during a private session. The gravity is crushing, the atmosphere is toxic, and the temperature fluctuations would kill most species. Humans call it challenging, I explained, repeating what Ambassador Drake had told me. They enjoy, and I quote, conquering difficult environments. It's apparently recreational for them. More warning signs, ignored like cosmic radiation alarms on a pleasure cruise. Then came the Proxima Beta incident. Humans had established a mining colony there, another inhospitable world with native predators the size of transport vehicles. When one of these creatures attacked the colony, the Council expected the humans would do the sensible thing, evacuate and request Council assistance for relocation. Instead, combat footage showed human miners, not soldiers, ordinary miners, performing defensive positions and fighting back with improvised weapons. They didn't just drive the creature away. They killed it. They butchered it. Then they threw a celebration and mounted its head in their community center. The Council was divided on how to respond. This demonstrates a concerning propensity for violence, argued Representative Zill of the Mantodine cluster. No, it shows admirable resourcefulness, countered Representative Jorah, one of the humans' most vocal supporters. They protected their people without Council intervention. Isn't self-sufficiency what we encourage? For the first time in generations, the Council chamber erupted in actual shouting. Shouting. In the Council chamber. Unprecedented doesn't begin to cover it. By the time order was restored, the Council had split into factions, those who admired the humans' efficiency and those who feared their methods. I, embarrassingly, was still in the former camp, cultural relativism and all that diplomatic nonsense we'd been trained in. Then came the trellis boundary situation. A minor territorial dispute between human colonists and Flaxian settlers, barely worth noting in the Council record. Until the emergency broadcast interrupted all Council communications. Attention all Council members. Human fleet detected mobilizing from Earth space. 73 vessels classified as warships. Destination, Trellis sector. Request immediate guidance. The Council chamber fell silent. Warships? The humans had built a fleet of warships. When? How? With what resources? I turned to find Ambassador Drake standing calmly by the chamber entrance, watching our reactions with what I now recognize as amusement. Is there a problem? He asked innocently. We're simply sending a diplomatic delegation to resolve the Trellis situation, with appropriate security. 73 warships is not security, Overseer Prell sputtered. It's an invasion force. Drake's expression hardened just slightly. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. And in that moment, I finally began to understand what we had invited into our peaceful galaxy. In the Vorax. Even their name sounds like something you might catch from swimming in unfiltered water. They were the only species ever denied Council membership due to their, shall we say, problematic approach to interspecies relations. Which is diplomatic speak, for they kept trying to eat the representatives from smaller species. For 3 centuries, the Vorax had been contained to their home system through a combination of trade restrictions and carefully negotiated boundaries. They were belligerent, yes, but manageable, until they encountered humans. The attack on New Dakota, a small human mining colony on the edge of Vorax space, should have been routine by Vorax standards. Swoop in, scare the inhabitants, steal resources, maybe sample a few locals as snacks. The typical Vorax greeting card. What they didn't expect was that humans had secretly fortified the colony. The Vorax lost 3 ships and nearly 200 warriors before retreating, but not before killing 47 human colonists. When news reached the Council, emergency session protocols were activated. I watched Ambassador Drake's face during the briefing. He appeared calm, taking notes on his tablet, occasionally asking for clarification on details. We're too calm. This aggression cannot stand, declared Overseer Prell. The Council proposes immediate sanctions against the Vorax hegemony and dispatching a diplomatic mission to negotiate reparations for the human colony. The Council voted overwhelmingly in favor. Standard procedure. Civilized response. The way we'd handled conflicts for thousands of cycles. Drake said nothing during the vote. When it concluded, he and the entire human delegation simply stood and walked out of the chamber. No comment. No objection. No acknowledgement whatsoever. That went well, chirped Representative Beale, oblivious to what the human silence meant. I knew better. I'd spent enough time studying them by then. We need to contact Earth immediately, I urged Overseer Prell after the session. The humans aren't going to accept our diplomatic solution. Nonsense, Prell dismissed. They're council members. They've agreed to our principles of non-violent conflict resolution. Have they? I challenged. Have they ever explicitly stated that they would follow council protocols for military engagement? Or did we just assume they would? The stunned silence told me everything. I made 3 desperate attempts to reach Earth's central government. All communications were experiencing technical difficulties. I tried Drake's personal channel. Ambassador Drake is unavailable at this time. I even attempted to contact former Ambassador Thornton. This communication address has been deactivated. 48 hours after the council vote, we received the news. The Vorax homeworld was burning. Not figuratively, literally. Massive orbital strikes had targeted their major military installations, industrial centers, and governmental compounds. The atmospheric damage was causing planet-wide firestorms. Billions of Vorax were dead or dying. The human attack had been swift, decisive, and utterly merciless. The council chamber descended into chaos when the reports came in. View screens showed imagery that none of us had seen outside of historical archives from pre-council times. Warships. Actual warships with weapons that could crack continents. Soldiers in powered armor dropping from orbit. Mechanized combat units advancing through burning cities. Where did they get this technology? Screamed Representative Zill. These weapons systems are far beyond what any council species possesses. They built them, I realized aloud. They've been building them since they joined the council. Impossible, protested Overseer Prell. We would have detected such manufacturing operations. Would we? I asked. On those inhospitable worlds no council species bothered to monitor? With resources mined from sectors we gave them access to, because their proposals seemed so reasonable. Using technology we freely shared because we believed they were pursuing scientific purposes? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They played us, whispered Lorana Pell, who had been right all along. They've been preparing for war from the beginning. An emergency broadcast interrupted our collective realization. Ambassador Drake, requesting to address the council. When his image appeared on the main view screen, he wasn't in a diplomatic setting. He was on the bridge of a warship, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. The Vorax threat has been neutralized, he announced without preamble. Humanity has ensured that they will never again pose a danger to any council species. This is unprecedented, Overseer Prell sputtered. You have violated the most sacred principles of the council. You have committed genocide without consultation or approval. Drake's expression didn't change. We didn't require your approval. The Vorax attacked our people. We responded appropriately. Appropriately? I stepped forward, finding my voice at last. You've exterminated an entire civilization. Not exterminated, Drake corrected coldly. Subjugated. The surviving Vorax have surrendered unconditionally to human authority. They will no longer trouble the council or its members. The council hurriedly drafted a formal declaration condemning the human actions and demanding their immediate withdrawal from Vorax space. When I transmitted it to Drake, his response was something I'll never forget. He laughed. Not a chuckle, not a polite diplomatic titter. A full, hearty laugh that echoed through our chamber like a death knell for peace. "That's adorable," he said finally. "But I think you misunderstand the new reality. We'll be implementing security protocols throughout this sector to ensure no further incidents occur. The Council will not recognize this illegal occupation," Prell declared. Drake's smile reminded me of the apex predators from my homeworld. "Your recognition isn't required, Overseer. Only your compliance." The transmission ended, leaving us staring at each other in stunned silence. The moment humans abandoned peace, the Galactic Council knew doom was coming. We just didn't realize it had already arrived. 3 months after what humans casually termed the Vorax intervention, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The council chambers, once a place of measured debate and thoughtful compromise, now buzzed with frantic energy and whispered alliances. Species that had peacefully coexisted for millennia now viewed each other with suspicion. All because of the humans. I found myself staring out at the rings of Centralia, the council's capital planet, wondering how we had misread them so catastrophically. My reflection in the viewport looked haggard. I hadn't properly reformed my epidermal layer in weeks. Stress will do that to a Zelaxian. "Beautiful view, isn't it, Krelzak?" I didn't need to turn to recognize Ambassador Drake's voice, now permanently tinged with that insufferable confidence. "Was any of it true?" I asked quietly. "Your peaceful intentions? Your desire to join our community of species?" Drake moved beside me, his reflection appearing in the viewport. He'd abandoned the diplomatic robes for what they called a dress uniform, adorned with medals and insignia that celebrated violence. "All of it was true," he replied, surprising me. "We genuinely wanted to join your community. We admired your achievements. We still do. And yet you brought war back to a galaxy that had forgotten it." Drake smiled. "We never forgot it. That's the difference. You built a civilization by pretending conflict doesn't exist. We built ours by mastering it." Behind us, representatives from the Talarian Confederation, once staunch council loyalists, were meeting with human military advisors. They weren't alone. 12 formerly dedicated council species had signed independent security agreements with Earth in the past week alone. "Your species is fracturing the council," I observed bitterly. "We're offering an alternative approach," Drake corrected, "and many find it compelling." He wasn't wrong. The Brekkie, historically among the most peaceful species, had recently announced a defense modernization program with human assistance. The Jurians, who had evolved beyond physical conflict so completely they lacked appendages capable of violence, were now purchasing human combat drones. Even the Moochans, those gentle empaths who flinched at loud noises, had requested human protection for their home system. "I still don't understand," I admitted. "Why did you join us if you had no intention of embracing our philosophy?" Drake turned from the window, his expression uncharacteristically thoughtful. "Because your philosophy was dangerously naive. The galaxy isn't safe just because you declared it to be. The Vorax proved that. They were contained, not converted. Without enforcement, peace is just a fragile illusion. And now we have your version of peace, maintained through terror and superior firepower." "Peace through strength," Drake nodded. "An ancient human concept that served us well. We didn't abandon peace, Krelzak. We just recognized what's required to actually achieve it." The council emergency summons chimed, interrupting our conversation. We joined the others in the Grand Chamber, now half empty with so many representatives recalled by their governments for strategic consultations. Overseer Prell looked defeated as he called the session to order. "The council recognizes Ambassador Drake, who has requested to present a formal proposal." Drake strode to the center of the chamber, commanding attention in a way no council member ever had before. "Distinguished representatives," he began, his voice carrying effortlessly. "Recent events have demonstrated the inadequacy of current security protocols within council space. Earth proposes the formation of a new defensive alliance, operating alongside the council, but but with specific authority to maintain galactic stability through monitored military deterrence. The chamber erupted, some in outrage, some in support.